All right, welcome to this episode of Real Estate Chat with John De Perez. And
Robert Eid.
feels kind of weird because we're usually doing this on Zoom and we're here live at our Remax Hallmark Bayview Village office. Feels a bit differently doing this
It's better.
is better. So if you like it, click on like, click on subscribe. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. Toronto Regional Real Estate Board numbers came out
This morning?
this morning, and we're going to review that in a moment. But before we get to that, we're going to see if Robert was right with his forecast because episode Rec 032, Real Estate Chat 032, you can go back a couple of episodes. This is number 34, so it's 2 episodes behind. Robert's forecast for average price 1,112,818. March 2023 reported by the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board 1,108,606.
3% off, 2.9.
That's less than 1% difference, isn't it?
No,
Or about.
this,
I gotta
that's a
look at my notes.
variation anyway.
That's like $4,000 off. So
Well,
not
maybe
too
maybe
bad.
that's the sales that I was wrong. No,
Oh, the
I
sales.
thought it was going to be 1.57 increase, and it was 1.1 increase.
Well, there you go. But in terms of the sales, 6,909 was your forecast, Robert. 6,896,
Almost right.
the actual number of sales. So since we're doing this a bit differently, I'm going to be popping in the charts that Robert is going to go through as we dissect the numbers of March 2023. Let's start with sales. We're sitting at, in terms of the, what is it, the 20th best March according to
The
your charts?
20th best.
There you go. So what makes this the 20th best, and what can we expect to see in
Well,
the
we're
months to come?
working our way up from the 24th best October, and we were the 21st best February, and now we're the 20th best. Now, we heard a lot of reports, and we'll talk about it being much better this month than it was in the doldrums of the winter. But guess what? That's what it's like every year. The question and the story this month is, where's the listings? Normally the listings appear in February, surely in March, maybe it's April. Their sales are off by 30% from the 5 and 10 year average, but that's much better than being off by 40%. And about half of a boom market, but so are listings. So I said it last time, it's a balance, subpar balance. And that's why there's nothing for sale, because so many of them that come through 10,000 new listings, they're not 10,000, 11,000 new listings, not. They're all repeats. They're just calculating them funny. Anyway, you know yourself, if you've gone out to look at houses, you've seen the same thing last year. You saw the same thing last month. 9 days ago, they had it at this price. Now they put it through again as a relist. It's a monkey business. However, you just have to put up with it, because there may be people that are encouraged by a little bit better sales, a little bit better prices, to put their home that they've lived in for 37 years up for sale this year and try and get it. And that mix of supply and demand is what this is all about.
So it's pretty much an uneventful, a boring market, a normal market, a regular market. Just things are just moving along just fine is basically what you're saying. So let's look at this chart here that shows this in terms of the school year sales. So this is chart 11C for you.
Right.
And when we look at that, it says we are here. So you're looking at this on screen. You see where we're at right now. And we saw the dip. Obviously, the dip happened during the pandemic time period. And where are we going now with this? It looks like patterns return back to normal. Are we going to see this continue on? April sales should be higher than March sales. May sales may be at the higher point than what happens in the summer.
That's
Where
right.
are we going?
That's right. So we are actually on a parallel path with what I call the amazing recovery. When you see it, you'll see it. Number one, which is 2008, 2009, except everything is different then. We have had no amazing recovery plan from the government that's given away money and shored up all kinds of prices and dropped interest rates like crazy, which is what caused the amazing recovery to happen in 2009. However, we're on track, just like you say. We're just 40% off a hot market.
40% off of a hot market basically from the peak. And
No, 40% off what it's normally like in
In-
March and April and February and June. We're just not roaring. But the balance between buyers and sellers is the same as it always is. The mix between condos and Freehold is the same as it always is. The mix between 905 and 416 is the same as always. Just that all the numbers are
So
lower.
there's really nothing surprising to see here. So real estate haters who have been thinking and commenting on some of these posts and wondering when's that crash happening. Oh, the recession is looming. And again, we don't have our crystal ball. I mean, Robert does a fantastic job at forecasting these numbers, as you can see. But I mean, look, where are the listings? Buyers are confident enough that they're able to pay these current mortgage rates at what they are. They're entering the market. Sellers, they're not jumping on board and just, putting their houses on market and moving wherever else they want to move to. Things are just
With
balanced.
no panic sellers, you've got no depressed market, and that's the whole ingredient. People want to pay. They see the prices are down. They see the interest rates are up. They see the monthly payments are what the monthly payments are. They know they've got to do something now and finance it short term till this high interest cycle goes through. But no one's talking about it yet. Inflation is coming back, and inflation is going to push the prices right back up to where they were quicker than we thought. And we're going to avoid the worst thing. It's a damned if you do and damned if you don't. But
Well,
inflation is coming back.
if you agree, click on the like button. If you disagree, click dislike and tell us what you think is going to happen. Now, let's look at this chart here, which shows the TREP data's residential average prices for March 2023, where we're currently sitting at, and it shows the percentage gains. And if I'm reading this correctly, Robert, we're down 14.72%, whereas last year was up 18.43%. So in reference to what and what it looks
Okay.
like it's going to start hitting up on the purple line, the purple line being at 2021.
That's 1 year ago.
So we're just skimming right above 2021 prices.
We are, forget about 2022, and we're right back where we were. So the next chart we're going to look at is a 2-year change, which shows exactly that. We had a boom, and it's gone away. It lasted for a short period of time on the way up from maybe the third and a half quarter of 21 to the first and a half quarter of 22. It was out of control crazy. And, well, that's over. And now we're back to 1,000,001. We were at 1,000,003, and we're not going to 1,000,002. I'm sorry, we're not going to a super high level right now. We're not going to a super low. We're not going to 700 as an average price now either. And the only thing that moderates this is that 905 had its peak in March, February, and 416 had its peak price in April. And it's just because there's so many more sales in 905, it pulled it up. So the Toronto average was in February. And that's everything that we're looking at here. So yes, we're down about 15% from a year ago. But if you look at 2 years, we're just about flat with where we were 2 years ago.
All right, and we're looking at that chart now, school year, September to August, from TREP residential monthly average prices, as you'll see on your screen there. So take us through this, and then because we're skirting the 2021 prices, are we going to sit above 2021? Are we just going to skim through that? Do you see any potential for prices to shoot up 5, maybe 10% over that?
Well, I thought prices were going to go down another 10 over the course of the next, who knows, 5 years, but it looks like not. It looks like not. That people have accommodated, people have adjusted, people want to buy real estate.
Could something still happen to change that?
Of course. There could be a catastrophe in the United States. There could be a weather catastrophe. There could be a war catastrophe. There could be a flood in Toronto, in Vancouver. Who knows what, maybe that's the same weather thing. But we can't budget for those, and we can't.
How about the R word, the recession word?
Well, this is a government-controlled economy, and they failed on the way up. They're failing on the way down. They're going to overshoot again and again with the wrong interest rate policy, but we're stuck with it. So if you have a job, just keep your job. If you are on the government dole, well, let's hope they don't cut off the funds for you. It's nothing dramatic is going to happen.
Okay, fair enough. Now let's look at the chart here that I know it's a bit harder to see. So if you are squinting at this, go to www.unclebobexplains.com. You'll see the full version of this. This is where you do such a great job at tracking and figuring the prices. Here you've adjusted for the 1108. If you look at Rec 032, it was 111. So where do we go from here? And you're still pointing to, let's say this month becomes that pivotal month where prices start to drop 1% here on in. We'd be sitting at the end of 2023 at still over a million, 1,012,000. But you doubt that's going to happen, right, Robert?
Well, again, you can look at this and you see it, and maybe you agree with me or not. Since the peak, we're averaging minus 1.3 per month. However, in the last 6 months, we're plus 2 per month up. So you've got conflicting information. Now, part of it is the spring. The spring is always the best time. We always have that nice arc. And the market is behaving as it does every year. There's nothing unusual. It's not as if we're at 4 times what the prices were 10 years ago. It's not as if interest rates are half what they were 10 years ago. It's not that they're 4% higher than they were a year ago. It's the way it always is. It's like you've got competing madness that's negating the effect of each one. So that we're getting nothing. We're getting boring.
We're getting boring. So that's a fair way of putting it. Now let's look at your chart 11B. And we see the spike there from the first lockdown, then up to the point of this is around May, June, July of last year. So where are we sitting at now?
Well, what we're trying to watch with this is there an extra concentration of high-priced homes that's pulling up the average price, or is there a dearth of high-priced homes that's affecting it negatively? And what we see is we had an up, we had a big time, and now we're right back to about where we were. I put a chart in one a few times ago, and we're sort of in between the what happened in the last 3-year average, what happened in the last 5-year average. So the percentage share of sales over $2 million is in the same 6 to 7% share range as it's been.
So basically what you're trying to say is that in spite of the way the market reports are showing right now, the sales and the price figures, that the number of sales at the 2 million or above that should be pulling these out of proportion, these are just relatively the same as previous years. So it's not really contributing to a higher average price to begin with.
No, it's the same as it always. I keep saying the same thing. Same as it always was.
There you go. So you kind of get the theme of this episode by now.
Until we get next.
There you go. So let's look at the active inventory 2008 to year to date. We're sitting at looks there just a touch at about 10,122 as you labeled it there. So is that high, low? Is that bad or good?
Well, it's 20% less than what it should be for the last 5 and 10 years in the month of March. And that's the whole problem. That if there's not a glut, prices don't fall. It's
supply and demand, basically.
It's supply and demand
Yeah.
plus consumer confidence.
Right.
And interest rates is factored into that. But that's what it is. And so it's all, inventory is not there. I'm surprised by the number they put out, which we'd look at next as what the new listings are. But we're going to have to dig into that deeper and deeper because, to my mind, the new listing number, if they've announced that at 11,001, more than 1,800 of those are relists, which means it's the same property that we saw last month, the same property we saw last year, and it's not a new listing. However, people like to see new listings. If you're out there looking right now, you will know that there are more new listings than there were a month ago. March got all messed up by spring break. We talked about this the other day. And if you look at the ratio of the number of new listings, the number of sales, we are very, very close to sellers market, 61%, where 65 is supposed to be the borderline. And if you subtract even the amount of relists that is being announced by the real estate board, we're up over 70%, which is in absolute seller's market territory. In seller's market territory, that's where you see bidding wars and multiple offers, and guess what? That's what we're seeing.
So even if you don't see what that sentiment is because the media is not communicating it, and the media has been reporting, you watch our several episodes back of a real estate chat, the doom and gloom and the crashing and how much things have dropped and the double-digit price drops from different places. What's actually happening in the trenches, what's actually happening on the streets is that, yes, we are pretty much in a seller's market. And if it's hard to believe, you just have to look at the inventory levels, as Robert has pointed out. You've got to look at how much sales are happening, sales to new listings ratio, as Robert has pointed out here. And now let's look at the active inventory to sold in terms of the months of active inventory. What are we sitting at here? It looks like you're at just less than 1.5 months of inventory now.
1.5 months of
Yeah, and
inventory at the sales rate. So it's the same thing. There's not enough inventory. Normally, there's going to be like 50% more inventory, and they're being gobbled up and they're not coming on the market. So we know this already. You can look at it 6 ways and you come up with the same answer, that we need more supply for it to be a balanced market. And if it's not a balanced market, we're not going to see a buyer's market. We're seeing a seller's market.
well, if you pay attention to this chart here, when you're looking at 2017, when that happened, we dipped below the 1 month of inventory.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
at the peak of the pandemic market leading up to the height of prices, we were looking at less than half a month or about half of a month of inventory. And so at 1.5 right now, we're not too far off. When you saw the first lockdown happen and shot up to 3 months plus of inventory, and when you look at the post 2017, that whole fallout there, you're looking at 3 months of inventory. We're at 50% of that at this point. If things continue, we'll probably be sitting not too far from now at 1 month of inventory again.
Well, that's the trend. Again, in the spring, when the crocuses come up, when the backyard is nice, that's when Grandma and Grandpa puts their house up for sale, because they figure it's going to show off their hard work in the garden over all these years to best advantage. And so it may change in April, it may change in May, but
All time will tell, right?
that
And
time
for
will-
those of you who are new to this and you're wondering what does months of active inventory mean? Basically, it means
Well, you take the number, which is a snapshot at the end of the month, in this case, 11,000 something or other, and you divide that number by the number of sales that occurred in that month, and that we call the number of months of inventory at that rate of sale
Yeah.
that exist. And so then you compare that to 2 months ago and 6 months ago and 30 some months ago, and you see whether you're above or below what normal is. And I call normal whatever the 5 and 10 year average seems to indicate.
and symbolically, if no house got listed today,
That's
how long will it take? And this
deplete the
is probably the
supply.
simplest way to think about it, because you think of how active a market is by thinking of it as, no house gets listed today. How long would it take for all the houses existing on the market to sell? And we're sitting at 1.5 months. At peaks, we were looking at half a month, 15 days during that February 2022-ish time
Right.
period.
It's a supply
Right?
and demand.
So we're just at
reading.
1.5 months. That's not a lot of time. It isn't. So
No, it's not as
Yeah.
a lot of supply. No.
yeah. So let's look at now days on market, and are homes selling faster? The obvious answer is yes, but why? Despite of what we've seen over the past couple of months, and when we started recording these real estate chats, we were at the up. Like, it was taking longer. It was after month. It was taking longer. Now it's taking shorter. Is that typical of a spring, or is something else happening?
Well, we're still seeing that a listing is selling in 19 days and it's supposed to be selling in 14 or 16 days. Now, is that significantly different? No. When you add up all the listings from that same property that did sold, it's at 27 days, and it's traditionally been 16 or 17. Is that significant? Yes. So, because it's a third. But for a property to be selling in less than 19 days on average, it's not bad. It's not bad. The fact that we have the 5 and 10 year average taking into the is a record of a boom. You're not going to do as well as a boom when it's not a boom.
Absolutely. So to wrap up this episode, what's the advice? Buyers, sellers, what should a buyer do now?
Well, a buyer's got to make a decision of whether they think there's going to be the same inflationary factor come into play that I am now believing will be. And if they are, then they're going to buy the best thing they possibly can and finance it at today's rates, or do some kind of a fiddle with interest financing through the seller, so you can get over the hump of the next 2 or 3 years when interest rates will be a little bit higher. Because it's all about monthly payments. But buy quality, buy the lousiest house on the best street and fix it up. Buy quality, buy school district, buy where you want to live. And sellers, pick your time. It looks like it's back in your
Back in your court,
court again.
right? And on that note, thank you for watching this episode of Real Estate Chat. If you like what you see, click on like and write in the comments what you think is going to happen in the market. And if you dislike what's happening in the market, click dislike and then share with us. Thanks for joining us, and see you in the next episode of Real Estate Chat. Bye for now.
See you later.